Hey there, and welcome to this episode of the OncoPT podcast. My name's Elise, and I'm your host, and I'm thrilled that you're joining me for another episode, or maybe your first episode of the OncoPT podcast. Either way, welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're here. Now, this episode is a bit of a continuation of something we've talked about previously. So, as we discussed in episode 244, case reports are absolutely one of the most important ways that we can advance cancer rehab, right? We know that the top tier, the gold standard of research these days are our randomized control trials, our meta-analyses, systematic reviews, etc. But we've got to start somewhere. And especially in such a developing field as oncology, physical therapy, and cancer rehab, even though we're a few years in, right? We've still got a long way to go. The best way to get started with this is by case reports. Case reports are how we take our experience, our knowledge, and we disseminate that for other physical therapists and other cancer rehab professionals to then say, you know what? I've got a patient very similar to that, and I don't really know what to do. I'm going to take this case report and better inform my own practice. And this is how we then get the randomized control trials, the meta-analyses, the systematic reviews, etc. We've got to start somewhere. And again, by sharing your knowledge and your experience of patient care and oncology physical therapy, you are helping other PTs and other cancer rehab professionals better treat their own patients with cancer. And that is a win-win situation, y'all. This is not one of those like, I win, you lose. This is a win-win for everybody, right? Now, I know what you're thinking, Elise. It's a bit early to be talking about case reports. If you are following along in real time, the ABPTS deadline for submitting your oncology specialty certification application, including that case report, is most likely going to be at the end of June. That's what it's been in years past. However, in a not surprising turn of events, ABPTS has not officially opened up the next exam cycle. They say that it is going to be in about mid-May. However, last year they totally said a deadline and then they changed it to the point that I was hosting the case report writing workshop live. We were supposed to have updates by the time I did that workshop, and we didn't. So forgive me if I'm a little skeptical for actually going to see that information. I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it kind of deal. So anyways, back on track here. Why are we talking about case reports now if ABPTS may or may not has updated their information by the time that you're hearing this? The case report's probably not going to be due until the end of June. Like, we've still got time, right? No, my friend. In fact, that is not the case. The reality is you need to start your case report today because writing your case report is a time-consuming and challenging process. Time-consuming, challenging, but very worthwhile. And so by waiting until next month or June or whenever you're hearing this, or God forbid the week before it's due, you are just asking. You are setting yourself up for disaster, a disastrous case report writing process. By starting your case report now, as in today, this is going to help you avoid the very common pitfalls that a lot of physical therapists fall into and overall ensure a higher quality case report where you are not going to have to go back and make silly corrections because you made silly mistakes during the initial writing process and have the additional stress of, is my case report going to pass the panelists who are going to review my case report? Like, am I even going to pass my case report so that I can take this exam that I'm preparing myself for? This is a big deal, and we've got to start thinking about this now because it is totally going to sneak up on you. Writing your case report will take you longer than you think. I don't care if you're a great writer. If you are, that's amazing. And like, double thumbs up at you, my friend. But writing your case report is going to take you longer than you think. And it's not because you are not competent. It's not because you can't write. It is that we as humans tend to underestimate how much time and effort it takes to do something of this level, of this magnitude. When I first started writing my case report way back in 2020, I budgeted 2 weeks from start to finish to start writing my case report and to finish writing my case report. And I thought, oh, that's plenty of time, right? this was false. Even in the face of, I was even not working full time because of the pandemic, because I had been partially laid off by my job, etc., etc. I was way off. It took me that full 2 weeks to crank out a first draft of my case report. And I consider myself a pretty good writer. But even with that skill that I have, I was not prepared for the amount of work that I had to do to complete that first draft. I wasn't prepared for how unprepared I was and how much kind of interpretation I had to do regarding the ABPTS instructions and case report guidelines. That took me so much more time than what I thought, that it really did take me that first full 2 weeks to even come up with a first draft. And so we get into June at this point. I'm kind of freaking out. I'm not kind of freaking out. I was freaking out because at the time the deadline was June 30th or so, 2020. Now, to my absolute thank God, praise be moment, ABPTS actually ended up extending that deadline for another 3 months because of the COVID chaos. So this is, let me be very clear right now, this is not something that is going to happen again, asterisk, right? Unless there is another international crisis. That is probably not going to happen again. I would really bank on that deadline being June 30th. Historically, that's what it's been. That's what they've usually done. Like I said, except for COVID. So I would not plan on any kind of extension. Last year, they did not do it, and they very much said we are not doing that again. So again, June 30th is most likely going to be that deadline because that's what it's been in the past, although it still hasn't been announced fully yet. So at this point, remember, flashback, it's June 2020. They have just extended the deadline. I'm thinking, whew, okay, I'm now going to be able to finish my case report in plenty of time. I can put it on the back burner for a bit and then I'll get it done and everything will be fine, right? Plenty of time to finish my case report. And again, y'all, I was wrong. So instead of starting my case report and finishing it like I should have been, I again waited until the last minute, frantically reformatting, editing, revising, re-editing, incorporating some very last minute feedback from my readers. Very much thank you, Shruti, for all of the amazing work that you have done to get me to this point, including the invaluable feedback you gave on my case report. And the reason it was so late is because I was late, y'all, right? I was the one who was late in getting everything done and in submitting it to the persons who identified to read that. I was the problem. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. And so all of this is taking place in literally the last days before my case report was due, right? We're coming up on that deadline, that extended deadline. And I finally submitted my finished case report at the absolute 11th hour. Most writers will account for the initial writing time, the writing part of writing a case report. And I know what you're thinking, Elise, of course, writing the case report, you write. But there is so much more that goes into this process beyond the initial drafting and writing of your case report. You are most likely going to forget or underestimate the time that is needed to edit, to revise, to edit again, to proofread, to format, to review. All of these things have to happen if you are going to create a quality case report, right? If you want to write a first draft trash version of your case report, please, by all means, go ahead. You can probably crank that out over the weekend. Best of luck. But you are going to want to put in the time and effort for writing a really great case report. And if we're going to do that, you have to do the editing and the rereading and the revision and the proofreading and the formatting in order to make this a really great piece of work that you are working so hard to create. And again, it's critical. Make sure you have at least one additional set of eyes on your case report. I would recommend multiple. The more eyes, I think, the better. Now, don't have 25 people read your case report, but if you can have at least a couple people read over your case report, it's really going to help you out because they are going to catch things that you're just not, right? When you're writing your case report, you are so close to that case and writing, and this whole narrative that you're curating right now, you don't always pick up on some of the silly like mistakes or flubs or just blatant leaving out of information that is going to contribute negatively to your case report. And by having someone else says multiple, right? By having others read your case report, it's really going to help you. It's going to keep you from glossing over those silly mistakes, and they're going to be able to say, hey, you know what? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like maybe you should spend a little more time on this. But they're only able to do this if you have time. So again, I was extremely fortunate that my readers had the time, even in my absolute like awful procrastination. They still had time to provide some really valuable feedback that positively contributed to my case report. And thank you so much. I thank you so much for that, because there's no way I could have pulled this off without y'all. But y'all, we do not want to be putting the stress on our readers because of our own time mismanagement, right? And so again, this really just drives home this point of it is going to take you way longer than you think to write a good, great quality case report. Just because it takes you 10 minutes to read your case report when you're finally done does not mean that that is the time that your readers are going to take. They are likely going to spend more time reading, rereading, and making notes, annotating, so that you can take their very valuable feedback and incorporate that into your final versions of your case report. So I would really encourage you, you need to budget at least a week for your reviewer, whoever you've identified, like, hey, I want you to read my case report. They need at least a week to read, reread, and comment on your case report if you are going to receive quality feedback from them. So if we're talking about this kind of like time frame that you need here, you need at least a week for those reviewers to look over your case report. And I would say like a week for each. Now, I sent my case report to multiple people at the same time, and then I just kind of compiled everything together. But you need to have that week built into your time frame. And so at this point, we need to start working backwards, saying, okay, if I know that I need at least a week before for my reviewers to look over things, and then I want a few days or like a week or a couple weeks afterwards so that I can incorporate that, I can do final writing, revisions, rereading of this. You need to think about that so that you can work backwards and know when to start. So again, this is why I'm saying you have got to start writing today, friend, because it is going to sneak up on you, and you are absolutely going to forget, because that's just how we are as humans. You are going to forget about all the other things that need to be done to write a really good case report, including these things. So start by considering these and then work your way backwards to know, okay, like I have this much time to write and then finish my case report so I can do all these other things like revisions, having someone else review it, etc. By starting on your case report earlier, it is going to absolutely directly contribute to a better, best quality case report. Writing a case report is complex, right? This is a very layered task that requires a significant amount of your time and your cognitive effort, right? And many PTs underestimate the time that it takes to write the case report. So what ends up happening is that we rush, right? And we all know the quality of work that comes out of us when we rush to complete things at the last minute. And this results in errors, omissions, we talked about that earlier, and overall a lack of attention to detail, which negatively impacts the quality of your case report. Again, by rushing, because you didn't budget enough time for yourself to finish this, to do a good job on this, you're going to forget stuff. You're going to leave stuff out. You're going to maybe not focus in on some really important components of this case that make it a really great case to write about. That's going to contribute to an overall lower quality of case report. And that does potentially jeopardize your ability to be accepted, not just for ABPTS oncology, but also maybe you're trying to publish this thing. That's amazing. And that's awesome. Let's do that together, because I really want to do that someday. But remember, it's not just a like, oh, shucks, I have to do some corrections. Like, let's say you submit your case report, you find that it doesn't pass. It is not just a, like I'll work on it, I'll do some corrections, and then I'm sure it'll be fine the next time. One of the things that flies under the radar for a lot of PTs is that they don't realize, especially in the oncology world, if your case report does not pass, you don't take the exam. Like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You have to wait until the next year to try again. So how this process works is when you're submitting your application to actually sit for the exam, there's the application where you submit, my name's Elise. Here's how many years I've been practicing, etc. But the case report is part of that. And the case report is going to be reviewed by a panel of reviewers. And then they are going to decide, is this a case report that passes our criteria? Is it not? And if it doesn't, there's two options. There is, this is so bad, like there's no hope for this. Sorry, you're done, right? And then it's you have to wait until next year to try. If, let's say it's not like that bad, right? But it still needs some corrections. They will reach back out and say, this needs corrections. This needs more details. This needs, more of your time and attention. And you have one shot to fix it, submit it, and then have it be accepted. Because again, if it is not accepted, you do not take the exam. Your application basically gets chucked. I don't actually know the process behind the scenes, but I imagine like they're throwing your application out the window. Probably not what happens, but that's what I like to imagine. And so again, it's so critical that we put in the time and effort up front, right? The first time around to create a high quality case report so you don't have to stress yourself out on the back end, knowing that your case report did not pass and you have to do corrections. So it's not always like big corrections. Sometimes it's silly corrections, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come with stress. So for example, my case report, I actually got it back and they said, you need to make these corrections. And I will let you know, when I got that email, I almost pooped my pants. Like I was freaking out. Turns out, I had to take out the ampersands in my case report. You know, the and sign? I had to take all those out and write and. Like those were the corrections that my case report needed. There was one other, I had to redefine an abbreviation that I used earlier in the case report. That's a long story. But anyways, like even those very silly corrections that I needed, that I will say like were not immediately apparent in the instructions. But again, that's why I made the case report writing workshop, y'all, because I have done the thing, I have messed up the thing, I have learned the thing, so then I can tell you, do not make the same mistakes I made. So once I did that, like I said, very easy fixes, again, typing out and every time there was an ampersand, send it off, we were good to go. But you don't want that stress, right? I want you at the end of that review period, once you've submitted your application and your case report, I want you to get one email from them and it says, congrats, your case report has been accepted. Here's what you now need to do, right? Let's not do any of this. Oh gosh, like I hope it's okay. Oh, it's not okay. Oh crap, I've only got this one shot to make it okay. Otherwise I have to wait a whole other year and that sucks. So if we're going to do this, if we're going to write a better case report on the first try, you need to start working on your case report as early as possible. And this allows you enough time to collect and analyze patient notes, other documentation that you might need in order to write a really great case narrative, to collect the research, the references that you're going to need to back up what you're doing, what you're talking about in your case report, formatting the report, and then getting feedback from your colleagues, from your peers. This is the best way that you can ensure that your case report is accurate, it's detailed enough, and is well written by starting now. And on top of that, by starting today, you are going to ensure that you have a clearer mind, as in not stressed out, in order to critically think about your case. And really think about and consider what is the information that is most appropriate, that is most important for me to include in this case to really show I am an expert onco-PT or an emerging expert onco-PT. This case demonstrates my competence and it benefits cancer rehab as a whole. Again, by not being in that crunch time of, oh my God, I have to do this right now, we allow our brains the rest and the space to dream and to think about these things that ultimately is going to culminate in a better case report. If you need some strategies on this, I really recommend breaking down the writing process into smaller tasks. So instead of trying to, okay, on Saturday, I'm going to write my whole case report. That's not reasonable. Start with like a section or maybe even an outline of your case report, and then start tackling different parts of the case report, like, of course, I'm forgetting now, the evaluation, the examination component, right? The patient prognosis. What are the key takeaways from this case report that I, as the reader, need to take away from that case, right? So by doing this, by breaking it down into smaller goals, by setting achievable goals, so, by this day, I'm going to have this section done, for example, and by utilizing different tools, like maybe you have a project management software that you really like to use. Maybe you really like your phone and the to-dos on here. Whatever that is, using the tools and strategies to help you stay organized and on task is only going to help you get your case report done and get a good case report written, right? One of my previous students, Shai, who y'all know and love because he's been on the podcast multiple times, when he was doing his case report, he had a very limited time frame in which to write it. He was working full time as a physical therapist in his facility. He had a dog that obviously needed and warranted a ton of his love and attention. I believe he was buying a house at this time. I could be wrong on that. He was working on restoring or working on his car. He didn't have these just like ample hours at the end of every day and just months of time that he wanted to spend writing his case report. And so he got started as soon as basically ABPTS that year said, okay, here's the information. So as soon as that exam cycle opened, he finished his case report, he submitted his case report, and he still had time to enjoy the rest of his summer. As in, this was not a whole June experience. This was a very finite experience. And then he was done. And better yet, y'all, he did not have to do any corrections on his case report. It was accepted and approved the very first time because he took the model, the methods that I teach in case report writing workshop and applied them and wrote a really kick-ass case report. Again, no corrections needed. Boom. And then he enjoyed the rest of his summer. And then he got started working on studying, and then he passed his exam, right? This is the process that I want for you. It is possible. Okay. Now, lastly, I tend to be a bit of a procrastinator, as I'm sure you can tell, or maybe you can tell, maybe you can't tell. And one of the things that my sister and I like to joke about is like, oh, well, if I procrastinate, that means that I will be wisest. I'll be older and wiser when I eventually get around to doing the thing and submitting it. So it'll be better because I'm smarter. Y'all, we know this is false, right? This is a joke. As much as I wish it were true, it's not. But procrastination is a very common challenge that is faced by a lot of us physical therapists when it comes to writing our case reports. Waiting until the last minute is absolutely going to lead to errors and inaccuracies, omissions, and overall compromise the validity and the quality of the case report. Remember, we are going for high quality here so you can get it done and be done with it. No corrections needed. Again, it is not if I wait, I will be wiser and older and then better case report. That is not the case. You may also be thinking, well, if I wait and I only give myself a certain amount of time to do it, I will be forced to get it done more efficiently because I am in this compact time frame. I am not saying you should spend a year writing your case report. That is not at all the case here. But if you are going to wait until the very last minute, you are going to rush. Even if you are a great last minute kind of worker, you are going to rush and you are going to overlook important details. You may skip essential steps or aspects of the case report writing process, which means that your case report is going to contain mistakes and inaccuracies. And the board is actually checking. They can check this information. So when you write a case report, like there's a caveat, which I mean, like this should be obvious. There is a caveat that says this needs to be a real patient that you have actually treated within the last 3 years. And if your case report is so bad or suspicious that they think, I don't think this is a real person, or this is really bad, I'm concerned here, they can actually request records to make sure that this is a real case that you worked on in the time frame that you've said you worked on. And if it's that bad or that problematic that they have to check that, friend, we have a problem. Like, we have a huge problem. Do not put yourself in this position. Do not procrastinate. Do not make these silly mistakes and omissions and errors that are going to compromise the quality of your case report, because it's only going to mean more work for you in the long run. So, for example, if you fail to include important details about a patient's medical history or their treatment plan, you may not be providing a comprehensive enough overview of the case to really establish this is important. This is what other healthcare professionals should take away from this, i.e., the whole reason that we're doing this dadgum case report in the first place. Now, in addition to, like I said, making errors, mistakes, omissions in the case report, procrastination is also going to result in missed opportunities to report the critical findings and insights from this very important case. Like I've mentioned previously, your case, your patient case, your case report is very important, and there's absolutely something that we can be learning from that. But if you are in a zone of, oh my God, my case report is due in 12 hours, you are not in a frame of mind to really critically think about what is so important about this case report. I need to make sure and bring this forward and highlight it so that other healthcare professionals, other physical therapists can benefit from this information to better treat their own patients with cancer, right? So it's really, really important that we're able to think on some of these components and really sit back to establish what is so important and amazing about this patient case that is only going to advance cancer rehab. So again, by cramming, we are going to forget things, and you are going to negatively, again, affect the quality of your case report and not fully contribute to advancing cancer rehab like we need it to, y'all. Now, one of the things that is so challenging for so many case report writers, and this is not because they're bad at it, it's not because they don't know how to do it. This is one of those things that I don't think is really fleshed out or explained very well within the case report instructions. So as part of this ABPTS case report writing process, and maybe others as well, you are required to include acknowledgement of the care checklist. This is a framework that has been established by kind of like healthcare in general, as this is the gold standard by which we write and we present information on case reports so that they are accurate, they are helpful, and not harmful to the patient. So overall, like, make it a really great case report. And a lot of PTs will absolutely forget this in their presentation, in their case report. And that is actually one of the like checklist markers. If you don't have that, your case report does not pass. And so many people forget this, which means, guess what? They have to do corrections, and then they have to try and interpret, what the heck does this mean? So again, by rushing to complete your case report, you are going to neglect certain components of your case report. I mean, like maybe you're even leaving out an abstract altogether. Do not cram and rush to the point that you are leaving stuff out, you are forgetting things. This makes your case report look unprofessional or even incomplete altogether, reducing its chances of being accepted for your specialty certification exam. And that is the last thing we want. And remember, I'm going to say it again because we've already talked about it, but just to drive this point home, if your case report does not pass, you do not take the exam. Again, do not path go, do not collect $200. You are not going anywhere here. So when I was finalizing my case report the day before it was due, again, do as I say, not as I do, friend. I made the mistakes, so you don't have to make them. So the day before it's due, I'm finalizing my case report. I thought I was almost done. And then I realized in the process of rearranging parts of my case report to make it more cohesive at the suggestion of my amazing reviewers, I had forgotten to reformat my references and they were all out of order. And y'all, I think I had like 25 or 30 references. It was something astronomical. It felt like a lot. And I had to go back through and I had to, in every paragraph, reorder my references. And because I had cited them using like number parentheses, because those were the instructions at the time, maybe they've changed. I'm not 100% for sure. I had to then reinterpret what citation I was referring to because the numbers had changed. And that probably took me like maybe 2 to 3 hours. And again, there was no reason for that happening except that I had procrastinated and I was forgetting a very important part of the revision rearranging process and then made extra work for myself on the back end because I am frantically trying to do all of this before the deadline the very next day. Again, all of this could have been avoided if I had not procrastinated. This was entirely my fault, y'all. Like, I acknowledge, again, hello, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. And in summary, procrastination is one of the worst things you can do for your case report. It will lead to errors, inaccuracies, missed opportunities to highlight the really important information about your case report, and overall, a negative effect on the quality of your case report. You need to prioritize starting now, starting today, writing your case report and start writing as early as possible so you can avoid the rushing and the cramming that takes place as that deadline draws near so that you can be done, right? You can create an amazing, well-written, comprehensive, informative case report that is not only going to demonstrate your competence and your emerging expertise as an onco-PT, but positively benefit and advance cancer rehab for all of us, right? Not just us as the healthcare providers, but also for the patients who you are having a direct impact on because of the information and experience that you're sharing through your amazing case report. So, to wrap up, writing a case report is really cool. It is a worthwhile endeavor that, as I've mentioned, not only helps you and your patients, but helps other healthcare professionals and their patients and overall advance our understanding of cancer rehab to better help cancer patients with cancer now and moving forward. Like, amazing. It gets me so stoked and excited to talk about this. But writing a case report is a time-consuming and challenging experience, worthwhile, but still time-consuming and challenging, that requires a significant amount of your time and your effort if you're going to write a great one. And I want you to write a great one. You need to be aware of the potential challenges that can delay your writing process and plan accordingly so you can avoid the cramming, the rushing, the procrastination, and the stress and frustration that comes with all of that. Okay? Let's not procrastinate. Let's get it done. Get it done so you can enjoy the rest of your summer, because summer is rapidly approaching. And I don't know about you, I have some fun things that I want to do when the sun comes out. By starting early and by implementing a proven plan, you can write a case report that you're proud of, that your grandma is proud of, right? That maybe she'll frame and hang on her wall, but also that you can submit as part of your ABPTS oncology application. You can do this. You totally have what it takes. You may just need a little help. And that's where my case report writing workshop comes in. This is my proven plan, my proven method, where I take you from a blank page to a completed first draft in under a day. Again, you know that whole 2-week process that I talked about that it took me at the beginning of this episode? I have condensed that by providing you a very specific set of step-by-step brainstorming and writing exercises so that you can get started and get done with your high quality, excellent case report. And I can't wait to see you in it. You can register now at theoncopt.com/case report, and I'll see you there. Until next time, this is Elise with the OncoPT, and remember, you are exactly the physical therapist that your patients with cancer need. So let's get to work.